I started the conversation by saying we're going to talk about what if tech grows the music industry instead of disrupting it. And I've been talking about a lot of disruption.
Yeah.
And I do want to promise our listeners we're getting to the other side of the coin. But there's one thing we have to bring up before we get there. And I'm dying to hear your ideas about what it could be other than disruption. I think you're the perfect person for this because you think about those new business models you were just mentioning. We're faced with another form of disruption right now, the training of generative AI models on unlicensed music, or maybe on licensed music. That could also be disruptive, but it's all playing out right now. If we get the licensing structures wrong, some people believe it'll chip away at the value of music across the board, a Napster type movement, or maybe even, I don't know, worse. But
Right.
they're saying markets could be flooded with songs, music will come down in value, human creators will lose out. But I was hoping the two of us could pause and look at what it would take to make the emergence of generative AI music creation into a net positive for the growth of the music industry. Can we, Vickie, can we fantasize about that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think about this a lot because I think, when I compare it back to the early days of piracy, all of that music was stolen and it was used in a similar way, only it was made available intact. Full songs were ripped, put on servers that are P2P and made available to consumers for free. And so people got to download them, they got to stream them, they got access to everything. We have a similar situation where all those songs have been taken and put into streaming or in training structures, training models, but they're not discoverable as the songs, and so they're in the blender, and I think there absolutely has to be compensation for that. I think that whether or not a song is used in attribution for an output is there. That's a separate issue. But I think that everyone does need to be compensated for this. And once again, we have problems where we have major stakeholders that are doing licensing deals and they will get the lion's share. And then we have all of these independents and smaller companies that are floating around out there. Those are probably representing the same artists whose volume-based streaming models don't work very well. Are they getting compensated? Are they getting compensated fairly? What is that? What is fair compensation? And I don't think we know what that is yet.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing the same patterns of market share based deals for AI companies, and then probably when those deals come to expire in 1 to 2 years, then they will move to what music is actually being used. And there's a big black hole there. We don't quite have structures in place to figure that out. But I do think about where will this land? And there's a couple of things when you look at all the disruptions that we've had over the last 25, 26 years. There have been a lot of things that have burst on the scene that had potential to be massively disruptive. Blockchain, live streaming, Web3, all sorts of smaller things. That the things that survived are things that are mainstream and that the average consumer wants to engage with. So I think about that. Does the average consumer want to sit and use their free time, their very scarce free time, to sit and create songs and distribute them out into DSPs? Is that a mainstream use? I don't really feel like it is. I think it's niche. I think that's niche. And so I think there's a lot of oxygen being taken out of the room right now around the fear that music will now be in the hands of non-musicians, and that music will be better than what artists will be able to create. And I don't believe that. I believe that artist-driven music is always going to surprise us and bring us new things. But what I do believe is that the music creation process has forever changed. And that because of AI, and it's not just generative AI, but processing, mastering, mixing, new tools, samples that don't have, rights related problems. There's going to be an entirely new suite of creator tools that will come out of this. And I think that that is the most positive. I think that's the most positive outcome. And
Hmm.
I think that, it's not only big artists that are using AI for help with songwriting, for mixing, for noodling and coming up with very, very fast ideas and iterating on them. There's also, if you think about the democratization of music, I think that we will have tools that will probably lift up markets like Southeast Asia and Asia and Africa and South America, where people don't have a digital audio workstation in every home, but maybe some things will be much more cost effective. And that those markets that are kind of struggling economically to be able to afford all the tools that we take for granted in in North America and Western Europe, that we will probably lift more creators up in those markets, and those are also the fastest growing markets that we have right now.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.